1 second.
We're going to say the pledge. Does somebody have a flag?
I've got one. If you want
Or
it.
Eddie can put one up.
Eddie can pull it up.
Pat has one.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I see it.
We are all set, Tony.
Okay. All right, we'll call this meeting to order, the Monday, February 1st, 2021. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Sheldon,
Here.
James,
Here.
Aruba,
Here.
Olson,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Eklund,
Here.
Graham Reinhardt,
Here.
Russell,
Here.
and President Doles.
Here, thank you. I guess, do we have a flag? Do you want to do the pledge again tonight? We can do that, okay? At this time, when everybody wants to say the Pledge of Allegiance, then? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States,
United
to
States.
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Normally, we only do the invocations on the work or on the voting session, so we'll go right to the clerk. Do we have any correspondence tonight from the public?
I have an email from the Office of the State Comptroller to be read. Dear Mayor Sundquist and members of the City Council, the Division of Local Government and School Accountability of the Office of the State Comptroller has initiated a statewide project of the 2021 budgets of the City of Jamestown. We will be reviewing the impact of COVID on the 2021 budgets. We will notify appropriate officials when our examiners need to come on site, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we will follow all necessary precautions and social distancing practices that have been recommended. We will also communicate with officials to obtain the records and information necessary to conduct the audit. At the conclusion of our review, we will report the results and provide recommendations to help improve operations. As a member of the governing board, you will have a role in monitoring any corrective actions that need to be taken as a result of this review. Therefore, please feel free to ask questions about the project during the engagement. The examiner in charge of the review, Kelsey Wilczynski, will contact you to discuss city operations and the role you play in providing fiscal oversight. Her email address is kwilczynski@osc.ny.gov. If I can answer any questions you have at this time, please contact me at 607-721-8306. Sincerely, Lisa Semenik, Auditor 3, Division of Local Government and School Accountability.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Did they give it, I missed you on that. Did they give a date as to when they're coming? They're waiting.
No,
When they
they,
can come.
yeah, they haven't given a date in this email.
Okay, all right.
We haven't received any further correspondence besides that letter indicating that they're doing a statewide look at COVID-19 and the impacts on budgets.
Okay, very good. Okay, at this time, we're going to switch the order a bit, as you can see on your agendas. We do have the two committees tonight, Norm Green and Brian Abrams, to discuss the Ward 3 polling site situation. I did talk to the mayor earlier today, and we decided, I don't know if Elliot is here. Is he with us?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
You are. There you are. Okay. I was going to have Elliot briefly walk through any of the information, and then we'll bring in the election commissioners to discuss the situation. So if you want to, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. So briefly, we are looking at what was brought up last week, which was the status of the National Comedy Center and the city's role with the train station that became the Comedy Center. And briefly, I think this stems from the fact that the polling location has been at the Comedy Center prior to it being the Comedy Center, when it was simply 211 through 217 West 2nd Street, which is the former train station. Briefly, that train station came to the Comedy Center by first going through a couple steps. In 2009, the city received a mass transportation capital construction grant to revitalize the train station. So after a number of years, the city had a fully functioning train station due to the grant, and went ahead and transferred the property to the Jamestown Urban Renewal Association, or JURA, which then transferred the property to the Downtown Jamestown Revitalization LLC. Once that transfer was put into place, the city leased through the Downtown Jamestown Revitalization LLC the property to the National Comedy Center in 2014, in June of 2014. There was a clause in that agreement, paragraph 12, which allowed the Comedy Center to purchase the building on June 30th, 2017, if it so chose. And that's what it did in June of 30th of 2017. It purchased that building. It purchased that building along with portions of Rose Alley, as well as Washington and East 2nd Street from the city. And that was done via council resolutions in 2014. Now, there are no council easements on that property for public purposes, but for providing public services like those of the BPU or DPW. So that's how we got here today.
All right. At this point, if I don't know if Norm, if you and Brian want to chime in on any of the situation with what's transpiring and what the next steps would be for the city to move forward and find another location, or any other information you want to share with us about that.
If I could start out real quick, Brian.
Go ahead.
The Election Modernization Act of 2005 gave complete control of designation of poll sites to the Board of Elections. However, before we're able to make that designation, we and do that search, we're required to seek out the advice and counsel of the city, and that's what we've done. We've sent you a letter. The Comedy Center notified us that they weren't going to have us there. This is the first poll site change of any type since at least the change in ward lines, and so we're just doing our job and seeking out any recommendations that you might have before we make a designation, as we're required to by the Election Modernization Act of 2005.
And to play off what Norm said, we have been at the Comedy Center since 2013. That's when we consolidated all of Ward 3. With the changes that will come after the census, we would have to re-review our poll sites to move currently, and then to move again in a year or two based on new lines and new districts. That obviously is something that is harder on the voter, and it isn't something that we look forward to. We are down to currently 49 poll sites across Chautauqua County, and we have obviously enjoyed and liked using the Comedy Center, and it has been a success. But obviously we need your input and your guidance as far as any recommendations, like Norman said.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'd just like to just chime in. I understand that you're doing your job, and you do it. The both of you do it well. My concern is it just seems like Ward 3. It just seems like there's. I know it had you said since 2013 they've been there, but it just seems like I don't know. It's like we've been flip-flopped a lot, and because I know when the schools, of course, it was very understandable when the schools, with all the shootings and things, and you understand that. But with the Comedy Center, and I'm just talking about things that my constituents have called and emailed and told me, it's like they're not wanted, in the Comedy Center, or because then they moved the transportation from down there, and now it's like we're not wanted, down there. And so people are feeling some kind of way about it, and kind of angry about the, the move and not the feeling of not being wanted to be part of the community center. It's in the ward, they can't afford to go there. So they just feel like it's another pushback for them not to be a part of the comedy center. And, you know, is it true? I don't believe that it's true. I don't want to believe that that's true, but that's how the people of Ward 3 are feeling, some of them.
Elliot,
Have there,
just a brief question. It came to my attention from members of the board that is there state law that would not allow us to continue there because of the fact that they have a liquor license?
There is, and I don't want to take the place of the Board of Elections attorneys or the county's attorneys, but Section 4-1041 of the election law prohibits any location with a liquor license from being a polling site. And we are aware that the National Comedy Center does have a liquor license.
but
So,
for clarification purposes, though, they also had the same liquor license last year.
Yes.
So have there been problems in the past since the voting has been there that we are now no longer available to use it?
if I could answer the question about liquor, across the state of New York, we have lots and lots of Legions, not in Chautauqua County. We did use the hotel in Dunkirk, but it's been liberally construed that if the polling site is separated from the area where liquor is served, and certainly in this case, we're on the opposite, we're on the back side of an exit. We certainly don't consider that to be in the same building. If that was in the same exact building, and once again, this is, if you're going to apply it, if you were going to apply this in Chautauqua County in the Comedy Center, you need to apply it across the state of New York, because most every county that is in the state of New York does have adjacent buildings that are being used to serve liquor, but certainly not at the poll site. That room, they don't serve liquor in the. And I'm not fighting here for the Comedy Center, but I am fighting for the interpretation of the law, and that and to hamstring Chautauqua County when no other county is being hamstrung to that level, and that would certainly be unfair in our future dealings in Chautauqua County, in our future attempts or efforts to secure poll sites.
I have a
Can you
concern.
tell me?
If what you're explaining is that it could possibly have to be moved this year, and then it would have to be moved again after the census figures and the districts are redrawn, which according to Councilwoman James, I find it really confusing and unfortunate for the people in Ward 3 to have to keep trying to find their polling place. If nothing else, it should be left alone until the redistricting happens and determine if that's still within that ward. But I think to have to keep changing it and change it year after year, it just makes no sense, especially for the constituents voting in that polling place.
Well, certainly the change of ward lines is something that the new council that'll be elected this November will have to deal with, and the Board of Elections will of course put a poll site in whatever ward, whatever of the wards that you've designated and where you've designated them.
Have there been any complaints with regard, any problems with polling since we've been there in 2013 that we are unaware of?
I don't think so. We've tried to do the best ability to keep everybody happy. We during this past pandemic election cycle, we did everything humanly possible to match their Laugh Safe program. We basically have always tried to be a very good partner with them down there. And we've done, I think, everything we can to keep that partnership going. As far as it being problems down there, I really can't speak to any at this point, and maybe Norm has one or two that, but I don't think we've had a problem with the voters or the problem with the workers. I think it's just a matter of a disagreement of allowing us to use that space and in the timeframes that we need to.
I have a question. Now, they're paid for the rental of that, so it's not like they would, 'cause I know one of the things was that because of COVID, you know, that this is one of the reasons why they're asking us. So I was just wondering, are they paid for that space, or, you know, are they compensated somehow for that space? You know, because I was just wondering.
When it's a facility like that, when we pay $100 per time that we're there, and that's part of our expense of basically using a poll site, you know, to have whichever partner we have. So if we're there once, of course, 100, and it goes up from there, $100 at a time. So it's minimal, but it's still a goodwill gesture from, you know, obviously the taxpayers to show some sort of gratitude towards some of these facilities and what they were using. And like I said, we've been there and we've done our best. And hopefully, like I said, you know, we did what we could to stay there, and we thought that the voters down there had a good experience from what we could gather. Obviously, you know, at this point, they're looking to have us go somewhere else.
In addition to that, you know, we followed the laugh safe guidelines. We hired extra people to take temperatures outside the building, which we didn't do at other poll sites. We hired extra people to do sanitization after every voter entered. The June primary this last year, we were, Vicki, you may remember that, we were actually in the area where there was the bus station. And so we weren't even in the gift shop because we wanted to assist them in every way possible to make sure that we complied with their laugh safe procedures.
Right.
How many
You know,
days? What? Go ahead, Vicki.
oh no, I was just gonna say, you know, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Norman and Brian were saying, that the voters really like that site. You know, they appreciate the brightness of it. They appreciate just, you know, going into the community center, seeing some of the, you know, I don't know if they purchase anything, but I know, you know, people are, you know, talking about the gift shop, you know, but I know that is a place that they enjoy because it's a beautiful spot.
This is actually, I've been doing this for 22 years, and this is the first time that that we've been kicked out for so little reason. We voluntarily in Chautauqua County, we're probably the only county in the state that has pulled out of all the schools. We weren't asked to leave. We saw it as being a good thing to do, particularly in the city of Jamestown, to reduce the potential for risk in the school districts. And so we really never come across any situation. I haven't in my 22 years like this.
I got a question. Is parking a concern for the comedy center? Was that raised as an issue?
Parking is a concern for the comedy center, and it was a concern for the ice arena. And to be quite frank, it's a concern any poll site you have in the city of Jamestown. I mean, you guys talk. I watch you guys. You guys talk a lot about parking. You know, parking's an issue.
Was the comedy center worried about the loss of parking due to people coming in and out to vote? Did they mention that?
They were closed on that day. Last Tuesday that we voted, they were closed, but we've really never had them bring that up as an issue as far as parking for their customers versus parking for our voters. That's never been brought up to our attention.
In addition to that, which Vicki would know, we bag a couple of parking meters. Nobody that's going to the comedy center is going to parking meters. We commandeer parking meters so that we're not using any long-term parking spaces, and our staff is much to their consternation, made to park down by the railroad tracks. And so parking, we don't take up parking, and certainly the community center has a parking issue, but it's not because of a poll site, mainly on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November.
And I've never had a issue finding a spot to park whenever I went to vote. There's always been a space somewhere legal.
Yes, the issue comes down to if they're not willing or they can't have it there for whatever reason. And I think you're looking for direction as to some alternatives in that area that's close by. I've had discussions with Lucille Ball Little Theater is willing to have you look at their lobby. They were actually very enthusiastic about looking at that. It's right down the street. There's a parking lot across the street, so that's an option. The lobby is handicap accessible. It's very large. That's one option. I know we've kicked around the library. The library has their own parking lot. It's a very large space. They've had their own elections there several times for their taxing district. So, I mean, if you're looking for recommendations, I know there may be others, but those two, I guess it just comes down to that, you know, we probably don't have the authority to tell them they have to have it there. I know that most people on the council were concerned with the move for various reasons, but if we're looking to move forward, I think, you know, those are two locations to look at. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to add to that.
Tony, I also mentioned the ice arena, but that was prior to them throwing in this liquor clause. And I know the ice arena also has alcohol on premise. So, but again, to Norm's point that we are in many places across the state. So I don't think we should rule that one out either.
And I just have a pause when I hear Norm talk about in 22 years that they've never been thrown out, and hearing my constituents talk about the feeling of the eliteness of the comedy center. It saddens me because because I was telling them I don't believe it's that, but it just saddens me to even have that said that in 22 years that they have never been kicked out anywhere. And I know we have no control of where, that's their business, that's their place of, that's theirs. And it's sad that it feels like it's theirs and it's not the cities of Jamestown. It's okay for people who are tourists and but not people who live in Ward 3. It doesn't feel like it belongs to them, and it's a place that they're wanted, and that really saddens my heart.
Vicki, I agree. I really, it's too bad, and I would appeal to their sense of public service. That they should have it open. I think it's the wrong thing for them to do, but maybe we've got to look at some other options. So.
Well, I go back to the federal funds that were provided, and that middle area that they call the rotunda was supposed to be available to the public as a transportation hub. And as it's been pointed out before, it really is no longer a transportation hub that regular routes other than people going to the comedy center would consider a transportation hub. So in fairness, and going back to the constituents of Ward 3, if nothing else, to keep it there until the lines are redrawn. That's going to be another year. It just doesn't make sense to keep moving it because it could be moved again, and to at least leave it for one more year. I mean, but I agree. I think it should be left there permanently. But if we can't, we can't. But to even do it for 1 year, to have to move it and then move it again, it just seems unfair for some of the individuals trying to find the location and having to deal with the fact that it keeps moving.
I see it as a public service and being a good part of the community. Yes, it was turned over in 2000 whatever, but public funds, taxpayer funds facilitated a lot of that work. The fact that it's a private organization or it's owned by the comedy center is what it is, but I think oftentimes you want to be seen as a good public partner. So, that's certainly within their purview if they are adamant about moving it. However, I just would kind of support Vicky and Tom in that I too have spoken with people who just don't feel like it's accessible for them. Whether that's true or not, I don't know how much communication and outreach has been done. So it just seems like another place where some certain people feel like they don't feel welcome. That could very well be not the case. I hope it's not the case, but it is something that has been brought up to me as well.
Mr. President, I had a question for Mr. Raimondo. I want to know, is there any current legal language as a result of these, I guess I would call them shell corporations, with the sale of the train station? Is there still any legal language on the books that allow the public to have access to that rotunda area? Was that put in there anywhere?
Well, the terms of the original grant do state that the rotunda will be used for purposes of mass transportation for the next 30 years from 2009 when the grant was funded. In as much as the lease and transfer of the property from the city to the comedy center went, that duty was assumed by the comedy center to provide that.
So that's still in effect, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the public, the taxpayer does have an argument with the fact that they've basically been shunned or locked out of that area that's supposed to be made available to them. I also want to maybe enlighten the public or maybe some members here on what it took to get that building to what it is today. That building, the train station, was considered a restoration project. They were very stringent. Maybe Ms. Serta can verify this, or maybe I'm wrong, but they were very particular on how that building was supposed to be reconstructed. There was stone missing inside the building. That Mr. Evan owned the building and he sold some of that stone off. Some of the very stone in there had to be replicated from the original quarry where the original stone was cut 100 years ago or so. The windows that were replaced were made by Hope's Windows back in the day. The current Hope's Windows remanufactured those windows and put them in there. The chandeliers that are currently in that building were sold off by Mr. Evan, and they went as far as to try to find the original chandeliers. They thought that they possibly found them, these Art Deco design. They found them down in Florida. They paid $75,000 for them. They were in extreme disrepair. They fixed those. Another example of how historically correct this building had to be was there was an air conditioning unit or an HVAC unit that was put up on the roof. It stuck up too high on the roof and it could be seen from the roadway. And as a result, they actually had to get rid of that or make it lower. So it was very, very stringent on how that building had to be restored. So we moved forward 10 years or whatever, and we took this building that we were so stringent upon, we blow a hole in the side wall and we put a connector to the comedy center. Now there's language that says that we're supposed to honor this agreement, that rotunda is supposed to be made available to the public. And now we have entities that are reneging on that and kicking a polling station out of there. I think this is larger than Mr. Abrams or Mr. Green. I appreciate these two gentlemen and coming on here and talking about this. But the real issue is that the taxpayers' money went into these buildings or into this building to restore it back to its glory, because it's an absolute beautiful building. And now there's members of the public that are basically locked out of this building for one reason or another. And I'm very upset by this, and I think it's bigger than just the polling station. And I want answers.
I don't know if Tony is frozen.
It looks like Tony's praying and frozen.
Well,
Thank you, Councilman Russell. I appreciate that. I knew some of it, but not all the detail. And that's very enlightening. You know, as much as I knew that was the historical preservation, I didn't know how much went into that. But I know people that were originally involved have been extremely upset that events could no longer take place there, like the National Train Day, which were very helpful in bringing people in from outside the community, and actually probably brought people into the comedy center that might have never given it a look.
If the
I also
members,
understand. Sorry.
I say this to the people that run the comedy center. If you want to be successful, then you need to be good stewards to the citizens of Jamestown. And by kicking this polling station out of there, for whatever reason you're doing it, you are not being good stewards of this city. There's taxpayers of this city that have poured money into that building prior to you taking it over. And now you're telling those people that they're not good enough to come to that building and be able to utilize that rotunda, which legal language says they have the right to do so.
Anybody else?
And while I don't, you know, while it's been mentioned that the money given to the city, because it was so long ago, it's unlikely that the feds will ask for their money back. I never want to, and maybe I'm incorrect, so please correct me if I'm wrong. That is on the city of Jamestown. And I don't want to be responsible for having to find those funds if the city is suspected to do so. Now, that may not be true, in which case I apologize for any misinformation. But if that is the case, then we're on the hook for something that we can afford. So if I'm wrong, please, somebody please correct me, because I don't want the public to think that we're incorrect.
Councilwoman Reinhardt, in the transfer paperwork where the city transferred the property to the National Comedy Center, there is language specifically stating that the National Comedy Center assumes all the liabilities of the prior grants, which would include keeping the building to be used for mass transportation purposes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ramondo. I appreciate that clarification.
Okay, I'd like to, kind of move on with, I think tonight's goal was to listen to the Board of Elections, get a little input, give them a little input. I think we've given them a couple ideas. I think that the other issues that were brought up are valid, but I think, those are for another discussion and for the Comedy Center to deal with. We don't really have a control over that. And the purpose of tonight was to give the Board of Elections some options. And I think that we have given them a couple. There's certainly others. If anybody has any, we can contact the Board of Elections for any other options. So unless there's anybody else that has any comments on that or would like to move on, like I said, I heard from the Little Theater that they were very enthused about, and they would actually like to invite them to come down and look at the space and see if it's something that could work. And also, we did mention the library. I don't know if anyone's actually talked to anybody from the library, but obviously that space has been used before. And there were a couple other places that were kicked around as well. So, that's something that the Board of Elections can look at moving forward. As far as the rest of the discussion, that is something that maybe the mayor, myself, and others can have with members of the Board of Directors of the Comedy Center. And I don't know if Brian or Norm, if you have anything else you want to add to that. they can let you go for tonight.
And go ahead, Norm.
I was just going to say thanks for inviting us.
Yep, me too. I appreciate you guys taking some time out and letting us sit in.
Thank you. And
Thank you,
we'll
gentlemen.
be in
Thank you.
touch for that. Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. We'll move forward with our regular agenda tonight. We'll start with our standing committees and finance, and the chairman of finance, Councilwoman Eklund, if you'd like to go through that.
Sure. We have a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Eric Ryan Corporation for telecommunication audit services for the period of March 1st, 2021 through February 28th, 2022, subject to the approval of Corporation Council as to form. And I see the mayor has, or whoever has brought Keith in to probably discuss this or answer questions, whatever.
Yes, if that will be all right, Councilman Reckland.
Absolutely.
Great. So I'll have Ryan introduce Keith. Ryan, you on?
Yeah. So we have Keith Venezia on from Eric Ryan. He can answer any questions that the council might have and has a brief presentation as well to give to the entire council. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Keith.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, and members of council. I do appreciate the opportunity. I do have a brief presentation that I would like to share with you. And it'll just take a few minutes here to, if I can get this thing to work. Let me see if I can get this. Share a screen. There. Let me see, there we go. Is that visible to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I want to take it. This will only take 10 minutes because I know you're a busy group and I won't take up a lot of your time. I was just going to cover a little bit about our history, how we came about to be today, just go over some of our clients, what services we offer, and how the actual program works. So just to give a little history, we've been in business about 30 years now. We're based just north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I actually own a home in Asheville, New York, and we've been doing work in all 50 states. We incorporated in 95. Eric and Ryan are my two sons. That's how the name came about. We're actually one of the largest telecommunication auditing firms in the country now. We have over 100, and actually now it's 120 employees. And we do work all over the country. These are just some sample clients, and I'll get into how we do and what we do in here in a minute, but here's some of the bigger names you probably recognize, I'm sure. We've done a lot of work through the 30 years with some Fortune 500 firms. I guess more importantly, on the government side, these are some of the government entities that we've done work with, and how we've come to be today was the County of Chautauqua issued an RFP to have the telecommunications bills audited. And we were awarded the opportunity. And the way it was set up, it's a shared savings model, which means there's no cost, no fees, no magic smoke and mirrors. It's only when we find savings and you actually realize the savings that we share. And we were awarded the opportunity at 18%. So what that means is any refunds or credits we were able to get the county, once they got that money, as example, a $1,000 refund from the phone company, we would invoice 18% or $180. And likewise, there's things we find that we can't get money back, but by making some changes going forward, they save money. So we share for 12 months. So as example, say we have a phone line that you had an old tool shed that you tore down, but maybe the phone line didn't get disconnected. The phone company says it's your responsibility to make sure you disconnect that line. But by us finding it for you, you're now going to save $30 a month. So in that example, we would invoice whatever the math is, $5.40 each month for 12 months, and then it stops. But we had great success with the county. We saved them $80,000. And again, it's capital expenditure painless, I call it, because we're not going to recommend you spend money to save it. It's really a scrub of the bills. We're working with Madison County right now. As far as others in New York, we did Brentwood School District. I believe they're the second largest in the state. over in Long Island. But you can see some of the bigger names like City of Las Vegas. We found $600,000 there. Of course, they're a lot bigger than you all are, but you never know what we'll find. So those are just some of the government entities we've done work with. And we'd be happy to provide references. Kitty Crow is one at the county. The school district of Jamestown, I am working with them now to move forward. I don't know if the name Brittany Spry sounds familiar, but I'm working there as well. Any questions on the different government entities we've done work with? All right, just real quick. This is just some of the services. We also do utility bill auditing as well, but telecom is really the focus tonight. We'll do the review. We'll look at rates and things of that sort. And I can send a copy of this deck if you would like a copy of it to read at your leisure. Now, the important thing about the program, this is probably the most important slide, is number one, it's shared savings, as I mentioned, no cost. We do all the work. We make the recommendations, no capital expenditure. The nice thing too is there's no obligation. So even if we find something and for whatever reason you don't want to implement it, there's no fee. So we always suggest everybody have the audit done. You can always just throw the report in the trash and there's no fee for it. But whether you select Eric Ryan to do it or someone else, I really think it should be something you should do because with the dynamics of the pandemic and all the changes that seem to be going on, we are finding a lot more billing errors because operational patterns are changing. People are starting to work from home more, and we're seeing a lot more errors. And then finally, it's client managed, which means we just don't come in and start randomly changing things on you. Everything has to get written approval from you all. Just these are some examples of things we find. One of the things we will do is call every phone number that you're paying for. You'd be surprised. We actually find phone lines. We just finished up a small manufacturer. They had 5 phone lines and 2 of them we called were answered by Wendy's restaurant. They were actually paying for Wendy's phone bill. Mileage charges on circuits. We see that happens. When we did Colgate Palmolive, we found one of their circuits from point A to point B was being billed wrong, and it ended up being a $300,000 refund. So these are just some of the things we find. There's a lot of different things that go on with the billings because there's so many different components to the telecom bill, touch tone, and all those different features that you might have. As far as our process, if we're fortunate enough to be of service, we'll send out what we need, the proceed sheet. Once we have the data, we key everything in. If we see something, we open a ticket. We'll talk to the phone company. Once they confirm that the opportunity that we have found is real, we'll send the notification out either to Mr. Thompson or somebody there. And this is an example. This is Daytona State College. It was a $102,000 refund, $32,000 savings going forward. And then we attach our ticket. And I know you can't read this, it's kind of, but you can see how busy it gets. And what this was, for whatever it's worth, is the B channels on an ISDN PRI weren't being billed properly. So we just don't look at the charge on the surface. We really drill into the actual, every piece of the charge that occurs on a circuit or a phone line. Once you approve it, we go implement it for you. We're the ones that'll spend time on the phone, and we're going to push to get it done because it's our incentive to get 18% of the savings. So we're going to push to get it done as soon as possible. And then if anything, you'll have a real nice line list that comes out of it. We'll call every phone number, as I mentioned. We document who answers, how much that line costs, and then you'll have a real good inventory once we're completed with the audit. As far as what is needed on your end, just real quick, the contract, obviously, with Eric Ryan, telecom bills. We like to get 2 months of the bills, a client info form that tells us who do we send those emails to, or who do we call if we need another bill copy, letter of authorization. Phone companies will not talk to us unless that's on file. Copies of contracts so we can make sure what you're signed for, you're actually being billed. We see a lot of discrepancies there. And then the tax exemption form, since you're nonprofit. And just, why us? As I mentioned, whether you go with us or somebody, I really would suggest having it done. We do have a proven track record with Chautauqua County. We are starting work with Madison County. They've signed up with us. No obligation, as I mentioned, that's big. So you totally control the entire project. We do implement everything for you. And there's a lot of different services we provide during the 12 months that are at no additional cost. So that was quick. Hopefully I didn't blow through it too fast. I don't know if anybody has any questions that I can answer for you.
I have a question. Do you just analyze the landlines, or do you also do cell or for the cell phone plan as well?
Yes, it's landline circuits, cell phones. Yeah, any telecommunications related services.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, I do want to thank you for your time. I strongly encourage you to, if you are considering this, that you do move ahead with somebody. I think you'll be pleased with the results you'll see, especially given that it's a no cost, no obligation type of an arrangement. So on behalf of the Eric Ryan Company and myself, I do want to thank you for your time. And I will look forward to hopefully hearing back from you all. If there's anything I can provide in the future or in the meantime, please let Mr. Thompson know. I will follow back up with him.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, did you have anything else you needed to add or wanted to add?
No, thanks.
Okay. And then the next resolution we have is for suspending the hiring freeze and authorizing the filling of 4 full-time firefighters in the Jamestown Fire Department. Note that this funding was included in the 2021 general fund budget and are all retirement replacements. Anybody have any questions or comments? Matt, I'm assuming that all these at once is to send them at school at the same time and to fall into line with your manpower.
That's correct. Yep. Our intent is to send them, all 4 of them, to school at the same time. So they'll fall into line as soon as they get completed with their recruit firefighter training at Montour Falls or anywhere else where we may be able to get them in.
How many weeks
So
is the
Matt,
training, Matt?
I'm sorry.
Just how many weeks will they be gone?
Right now, the recruit firefighter program is running at half capacity. It's probably going to be a 13 to 14 week program, which it has been. The issue with the academy is they obviously have to follow the same restrictions as any other learning institution. So they're only able to accommodate half the students. So our goal will be to get them out to training hopefully as soon as possible. And I can certainly keep you guys posted on when we have actual dates that the academy will be able to accommodate them.
Matt, I was just wondering, so I assume that they're already hired, and I was just wondering, what is the makeup? Are there any of color, any diversity in them, in the firefighters?
Councilwoman James, they have not been hired yet. Right now, they have done interviews and they've done their agility test. They have not had their background checks come back yet, so we can obviously check their backgrounds, and then they'll also have to have their pre-employment physicals before we can move forward with that.
Thank you.
And again, Chief Coon, I just want to reiterate for the general public, and this falls in line with Councilwoman James' comment that you're off of a test that was done how many years ago? A year ago or more?
2. Yep, the
2
test
years
is
ago.
2 years old.
So yeah, so just keep that in mind, as well.
Councilwoman James and Eklund, just for your own awareness, I have done some research with that, and we're striving to have the fire department reflect the diversity of the community.
Thank you.
I think Jeff told me some interesting information too that Kim probably knows, and Jeff, the chief. But what I didn't know, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, is that in order to apply to even be eligible to be hired, you have to be an EMT first.
Mhm.
Is that not correct, or something like that? So there are steps to becoming a firefighter that most people probably don't know, and so it's important that people interested in either law enforcement or firefighting really know what is required to go into those fields, so we can begin to expand that pool. So just another layer of something, at least in the fire department, that is required. So please be aware of that as well.
Tamu,
If
I
that's-
will also say that the professional firefighters did do a public education campaign trying to do just that and tell people what is required to be a firefighter or to even be considered to be hired by the city of Jamestown. So thanks to you, Chief Kuhn, and the guys on the job too for getting that out there.
Of course.
It's
And just
wonderful. Thanks.
When was that done? I was just wondering, when was that done recently?
within the last
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, everyone, you're not required to be an EMT to sit for the exam. They just have to be an EMT to be appointed. So there's certainly, anybody is welcome to sit for the civil service exam. They do not have to be an EMT.
However,
Is that just a city? Oh, sorry. Is that just a city requirement or is that a state requirement?
For the EMT?
Yes, in order to be like appointed as a firefighter.
Right, that's a city of Jamestown requirement per civil service. That's right on the announcement.
Okay.
However,
I'm sorry, you froze there for a second.
yeah, I did. I will advise, and I know you know this, that although that's not a requirement to take the test, I do know for fact, chiefs, whether you've been in this situation, probably not since the test is 2 years old, but where individuals have taken the test thinking they have some time to get their EMT certification and they lose out because they did not have it and the department actually hired in a short time period. So although it's not a requirement, it's something I would do in a timely fashion if that's what you're thinking of doing.
Agreed. Yeah, highly recommended that they get that done as soon as possible.
Matt, I was just wondering, that public announcement, the public awareness thing that you did, could that be done again? I don't know, if so that we could help get some people who maybe, I didn't know, I missed that. And so would like to just get it out there to the community and, so that they can be aware of it. So at least we can say we put it out there.
Vicky, I
Yeah.
believe it was recently done on social media through the Professional Firefighters Union.
Oh, I missed that somehow. So
Yeah.
I'm just
yeah.
wondering if I slept on that one because I don't remember that, but
I'm gonna be
done.
honest. The only reason I know is someone screenshot it and sent me and asked me a question.
Well, see, so if we can maybe do, because as we found out through the stakeholder sessions that we were holding, communication seemed to be key, and the communication sometimes was something that we know things and we know how things run, but the community doesn't know. And so if we could just do a better job in communicating these things and letting them know, I think, we found out, just the comments and, please share Public Safety Committee, that it just seemed like that was something that echoed through the, all the shareholder meetings, was better communication of how things are run and done. For both sides.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And if anybody has any questions, they're certainly welcome to call the chief's office and get information. Just as recently as last week, I did just my own study on the department demographics versus the demographics of the community. And we are in line, and we continue to strive to make sure that we stay in line with the demographics of the community. It's very important to us.
Okay. Well, so it was done on social media. Was that recorded? Is that something that we could just
No, I think
send it out again, or?
I think they did a day by day, like 5 steps. I think I saw step 2 of X. Don't quote me on the number of steps, but I think they went through, Chief Kuhn can probably add more to that, but I think they went through on like day 1, here's some beginning information. And then they did like a series of them.
Councilmember James, we can, I'll work with Deputy Chief Kuhn and the union to see if we can't do like a recap or a one-pager that you guys are able to share out, okay?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
What I would recommend maybe after COVID clears is, I know at some of the schools, particularly Jamestown High School, they have military recruiters that come in and speak with, they set up in the cafeteria and they have literature there, and they talk to the kids there on what it takes to, join the Marine Corps, join the Air Force or the Navy. I would recommend that maybe we have a liaison from the police department and the fire department come in, set up the same way, and explain to our youth there exactly what are the steps if you want to be a firefighter or if you want to be a police officer. So we're getting that out there, and there's some interaction going on there, and it's being explained to them the entire process.
Okay, anybody have anything else further on that? And then the informational and report stuff, I'm gonna let Ryan and the mayor handle that.
Sounds
I'm
good.
just gonna share my screen. Probably easier for me to go through some of these with my screen shared. Can everyone see my screen all right?
Yep.
All right, so the mayor had asked me to put together a summary of our parking ramps over the last 3 years. We have 3 ramps that we own and are operated by All Pro Parking, Spring Street, North Main, and Cherry Street, as well as a couple lots that they also manage, Prendergast and Lafayette. And you can see that over the last 3 years, the profit obviously this year has gone down significantly. This year, we only turned about $6,115 in profit as compared to 2019 at $54,150. Not surprisingly, what is driving that is the drop in revenues. Revenues this year were only at $332,810, and last year they were at $382,951. You can really see that the expenditures have not changed a whole lot over the last couple of years. So overall, we're looking at our profits for these parking ramps and lots down $48,000 this year as compared to 2019. I do also want to note that this does not include any debt service payments related to any projects or construction that was done at any of these parking ramps. Does anyone have any specific questions for me? There's a second sheet in there as well that kind of goes into a little more detail on what the different components of revenue and different components of the different expenditures as well. So. There's no questions. I will move on to the second informational report. As you're all aware, the police were awarded 2% raises in 2016 and 2017. We did pay this retro on January 22nd. The 2% compounds to about 4.04% over the 5 years. In total, the payout was $932,460 in salaries. When you account for retirement and Social Security and Medicare, it gets you up to $1.2 million, $1,229,335. We did get a little back. Just going to move this over. We did get a little back on the health contribution side as the health contribution percentages went from 17 to 19%. And so we were able to get about $139,000 back there. So the grand total cost of the retroactive pay was $1.1 million. I also want to note that the previous administration did have an accrued liability booked for the 2% in 2016 and 17. So this means that the retro raises for 16 through 19 will not negatively impact our fund balance. We will have a large hit to this year's budget, the 2020 budget, as well as the 2021 budget of about $220,000 per year.
And Ryan, I just want to clarify something that was said a couple times to me, and probably to you as well, being in the financial field, that, that the reason the previous administration, accrued a potential impact for this wasn't because, you know, they knew they were going to lose, regardless of what your opinion was, that you have a financial obligation to report and accrue for any potential liability or open pending case on anything. And this was one of them that we had to accrue for. So I want to just make that clear so people understand.
Ryan, when you said it, you said from 16 to 19. So is that for 2 more years as well?
No.
I think okay, there's no
No.
more, because I thought he said from 2016 to 2019. So, but there's nothing.
Their first ruling was just for this 2% was just those 2 years. We still have compounding from 2018 on because we have to pay those significant raises backwards, right?
I understand, but I thought he just said that we had the accrued amount from 2016 to 2019. But was that just 2016? There's nothing else other than the amount that we have potentially saved for the fire department saved, correct?
No, that's incorrect. There was also an additional liability booked at the end of 2019.
Okay,
Right.
that's what. All right.
Yes.
And what's that amount for?
I don't have it off the top of my head,
Okay.
but I've shared it multiple times. I can certainly send a follow-up.
Yeah, just be curious to see what that is. Thank you.
And keep in mind that those values that are any company or business or city or government entity that has to accrue that potential liability ruling could be very understated or overstated.
Yeah, but at least there's something there. I mean, that's
Right.
No.
But I'm just clearing the facts that are circulating out there.
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, at this point, I think it's probably a good thing that it's there. So.
And by law, it has to be, should be, anyway.
Great. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Is that it for finance?
That's it for finance. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. We'll move on to public safety and the chairman, Councilman Sheldon. If you have a couple things.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have the same resolution suspending the hiring freeze and authorizing the filling of 4 full-time firefighters in Jamestown Fire Department due to retirements or pending retirements. And then for informational purposes, we have taxi rate request, tax rate card request from the Rainbow Cab Company of Chautauqua County. Everything was in order. They did pay their fee. Do we need to get a motion from the Public Safety Committee to approve this? Tamu.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. And finally, we have changes to the City of Jamestown management guidelines. I believe this was included in the email. I think we had this actually mailed to us a while back, but there were a lot of changes in job titles, such as legal secretary to legal assistant, adding paralegal. Certain areas were crossed out. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at this. Appreciate that everything was put in red. That was a change. Adding Juneteenth as a holiday is new to the management guidelines. Adding paternity leave in addition to maternity leave for 2 weeks. It's new. Mayor or Elliot, is there anything else you want to point out at this point?
Councilmember Sheldon, just to add, we did make some adjustments to the salary range for police chief as well as the police captains, given the adjustment in base salaries for the other uniformed officers. A lieutenant is actually now making more than the starting rate of a captain. So we needed to make adjustments there on the salary schedule to account for that.
Thank you. Any questions on this?
We're open to any additional feedback that folks have. We just put this in as informational to hear and receive any other feedback that you all have on the management guidelines.
I do. The ones that have a cost financial impact and also negotiating impact, have we done any research on those? I mean,
Are there specific ones you're referring to, Councilmember Eklund? I'm sorry.
the addition of a holiday, for one, in particular, there is a financial impact with doing that. Whether it's the right thing to do or not, that needs to be fully disclosed. And does that have to be negotiated on each contract again? Because none of the contracts have that in there currently.
That's correct. If we were to put Juneteenth as a holiday for any of the bargaining units, that would have to be negotiated into it. This would just be obviously for management guidelines. That was added at the request of Councilmember James.
But there still is a
Kim, I have
financial-
yeah, I have it, Kim. I can
Okay.
share.
That's what I would like to see, the financial impact of all of it. Thank you.
We'll get that over to you, Councilmember Eklund. Thank you for raising that point.
Any other questions?
Mr. Sheldon, I just wanted to bring up real quick, I guess this is more new business. It should be on the next agenda work session. I had someone request a street light on Potter's Alley about mid-block of Potter's Alley. A couple businesses requested it. It didn't make it in time to get on this agenda, but it should be in the next one. I spoke to Jen about it, so if everyone's aware of that, they'll see it next time.
Yeah, it has to go to the BPU for review. I actually requested a couple of streetlights on Marvin Parkway a couple of weeks ago, and apparently that has not come back from the BPU at this point. So it will be coming at some point. All right. Anything else at this point? All right, that's it for public safety then.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was on mute. I requested
go ahead.
one on Livingston last month also, a light, so haven't heard back from that one either.
Just some information that we've gotten from the BPU. They actually moved some of the streetlights on Livingston.
Oh, okay.
To help with the lighting down there. They did let us know that, and at that time we followed up with Councilman Sheldon's request as well. So when once we submit Councilman Russell's request tomorrow, we'll follow up with Brett with your initial request.
Thank you.
Yep.
That it for public safety?
Yes.
Thank you. There's nothing.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Mr. President, if I just wanted to, for housing, we did have a meeting, and we would like to report that on the second work session of the month that we will be on the agenda with a, and so the things that we're going to be looking at and talking about is the beginning process for the Citizen Advisory Committee. We'll have updates on demolition, and we'll be talking about open and closed cases, and also some successful cases. And we'll also be having an update on our tenant rental and utility grants. And that will be on the second work session of the month. We'll start having reports.
Very good. Is that next week then? Will be
Correct.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
there was nothing on the agenda for Public Works, but I did want to mention that I followed up with the resident that mentioned the flags on the 3rd Street Bridge. And I spoke with Jeff Lehman. He got me a quote. It was higher than we both expected. And but then I ran it by the people who were interested in purchasing the flags, and they were okay with the price. So It's something I think we should pursue. I think it would be a nice thing to do on 3rd Street with, you know, everything else, the trees that have come down. And I guess I would, you know, just like to see the council support a resolution to accept this gift from the residents who really they aren't doing it for their own recognition. They don't want to be named. So I guess there's more to come on that. I can foresee maybe, you know, the flags will, after a few years, will probably need to be replaced, and maybe other people might want to step up and purchase a flag, maybe in memory of a loved one, or, you know, a friend or relative. That might be something that might be a nice thing to start. I can see the flags possibly going up sometime in May before Memorial Day, and coming down in the fall, maybe just after Veterans Day. So I guess there's maybe more to come with that, but just wanted to report back to you on that. And I was very pleased to hear from the people, and I want to thank them for very generous of them to do that.
Since we've already moved on to new business. We do have one item session under contract negotiations. Again, I just, want to thank on the polling place. I think there are individual feelings about that, and certainly there's a lot of issues, other issues surrounding that are probably going to be addressed later on down the road in the future. But again, I try to give the two election commissioners an idea of some alternatives, at least in the time being, to look for a different location if one that is there isn't going to work this year. So I just want everybody for their input on that. With that, do I have a motion? Before I do that, though, I just wanted to say, I apologize if I froze earlier. You might notice I have a different background. It's a COVID night, I guess, being on Zoom. That's the first time that I've been frozen in my basement. And I moved upstairs, and on the COVID sense, I don't know if you noticed behind me, during COVID, my family played pintail on the, so if you saw the donkey back there, my college age kid, it would be fun back in April or May when we were really stuck inside to resurrect the donkey again. He's still on the wall, so we still may play it again. So if you're wondering what that was back there, it is a donkey. And I did have fun playing it with them. They're 22 and 19, by the way, but that was fun. So anyways, I thought if you saw that and wondered why that was back there, I don't have 5-year-olds, but I do have kids that still enjoy some fun. I have a motion to go into an executive session.
President Dulce, I have some messages from the mayor. The mayor's
Oh,
comment.
I'm sorry. I forgot you. I am so sorry. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No,
I apologize.
You, as President Dulce mentioned, there is one item for executive session, which is the collective bargaining agreement, and there'll be a second one for personnel matter. So there'll be 2 total. I'm actually going to yield the floor actually to continue our discussion of different work sessions on achievements of the departments for 2020. And I believe the DPW is going to be talking a bit about some of the things they've accomplished for 2020. Is that right, Zach and Jeff?
DPW and Parks.
DPW and Parks. All right. Zach, if you want to share your screen, and I'll turn it over to Jeff and the team.
Okay, probably the biggest thing that went on last year, besides COVID, was the City Hall renovations. Almost a $2 million project where we tackled lighting, heating, cooling of all the different buildings. You can see that
the pictures are the new cooling towers outside of City Hall, the new heating system in the basement of City Hall, and of course, our beloved lighting on City Hall. Probably the other biggest project we had was the new stormwater management facility up above the park. As you know, we identified a problem of flooding through Roseland Park that was flooding down into Washington Street. We put a new 47,000 gallon holding pond, detention pond up on some property. Took us some maneuvering to get some property. And even with COVID, they were able to get that built and in place. And knock on wood, so far it's a good thing. But it is the first phase of 2 phases for that system. The second phase we'll talk about for 2020-21, but that goes down in the park. And then probably our other biggest items was the finalization of the phase 3 DRI improvements that were done, particularly the ones downtown. We finished up 3rd Street, the alley, and Black Bear Court, which we, interestingly enough, all we had was a night shot of them finishing it in the dark at the end of the season. We also got the kayak launch installed down to McRae Point, which was met with a lot of compliments, a lot of people using it. This one is what we're planning for next year is like I said, the lower portion that'll be built in the parking lot of Roseland Park, which is above the baseball field. We got the material and we'll get started on that in the spring. This would be the Smart Transportation and Tourism Project. We awarded the project. We've met with the contractors and they came in right before we got all the heavy snows. So we kind of got put on hold, but that project is ongoing. We hope to have that in place by the end of spring. 135 new parking meters, pedestrian vehicular traffic signage downtown to help folks get to the comedy center, the reg, destination spots. I'll turn it over to John now. I think he's still on.
Yep, I'm still here. Right here, you'll see the overlook at Allen Park. It's signed there. Actually gives the history of the Allen Park swimming pool. And we, DPW has done a lot of work down on the walls at the pool. It's a nice place to sit and relax and just view the trees and pool. This is the playground over at Loy & Dixon. 2019, we received the money. We still have not installed this playground. The playground that was there has been torn down. This playground is also going to be involved with a swing set, and it's going to be closer to the Faulkner Street side along with the other one. The swing set that is existing there will be torn down, and the playground and both playgrounds will actually be side by side. It won't be a big difference in fall zones. Here we have the Jackson Taylor restrooms being constructed, added on to the concession stand down there. That will probably be finished up in the spring, I believe. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's correct.
Here you can see the plans going forward for the new skate park down here at Fairmount Avenue. It's just in the planning stages right now. We're still meeting about the skate park. This is not the actual location of the Riverwalk stabilization. It's actually behind the BPU, trying to collect some of the runoff water coming down Steel Street. There's all kinds of beds and flower beds going in down there to retain the water down there. As you all know, we're in the middle of taking all the trees down on 3rd Street. We're actually gotten down to 5 trees left, which will be probably down this week. And Dan Stone, the arborist here, is working on seeing what he can do about planting up there. There's been a couple of different things that's come about that we've been asked to be involved with. You can see the disc golf. We have an organization that wants to come in and install baskets around Bergman Park so they can have a disc golf set up there. And the other that we probably should think about someday in the near future will be a dog park, probably at Bergman or one of the parks, which right now there's no funds for that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm up. Good evening, everybody. So wanted to talk about the 16 pieces of equipment that we worked on getting replaced for 2020, about $2.5 million worth of equipment. Most of the equipment, even though the pandemic complicated things, it all showed up on time, which was good. And I just was informed that the last piece should be delivered this week. And as a side note, what I'd like to do once everything is finally in and delivered, I would like to catch back up with all of you and just give a brief presentation, just to run down some pictures and just an overview, kind of a wrap up of this whole process. I mean, we've been talking about this since 2018. It's great that it's finally come into play. This equipment will definitely reduce the cost of ownership going forward for the city budget. As an example, storm sewer truck that we purchased for DPW was costing us about $17,000 a year to repair and maintain up at the end of its life. The new one that we've replaced will cost considerably less and will use considerably less fuel. So in addition to that, we've also negotiated some extended warranties to help cover the cost going forward. And along the note of warranties, we were able to become an authorized repair facility for Daimler, which is the parent company for Western Star and Freightliner trucks. We'll have access to all of the repair resources that the dealership service department does, and we'll have the ability to be reimbursed for all of our parts and labor. One also advantage of just quicker turnaround time is the fact that in some instances, our reimbursement rate for our labor is higher than what our internal fully burdened labor rate is. So that will also become an advantage moving forward.
Pat, real quick, what percentage of our trucks fall under that brand?
Let's see. We have between DPW, BPU, there's probably about, I want to say there's about 10 at this moment. And as we replace them, we're going to continue to purchase them. They just seem to perform better for us.
That was my next question. So, all right. Thank you.
So, okay, move on. And then finally, for 2020, we made the transition into electronic procurement and joined the BidNet Direct program. Provides all the necessary resources to solicit and award bids electronically, and allows us to connect more with a wider array of vendors to just have better cost savings potentially. The best part about it is it's completely free. Moving into 2021, want to continue working with BidNet to fully transition into electronic purchasing. At this time, we are still providing paper copies in conjunction with the electronic bidding, just because it's quite a process to change right over just at a flip of a switch, especially when you consider a department like DPW, whose RFPs are very complex and technical in nature. It takes more time than simply putting out a bid for a vehicle, for example. Okay. And then Also want to continue on with the fleet centralization efforts as recommended in the Mercury Associates study. We've made some great progress and made some great strides in that direction. And for this upcoming year, I'd like to continue working on giving fleet services more of a formal recognition within city government. And I'd like to establish some more policies and procedures for city fleet operations. Next. And then finally, perhaps the biggest goal I have for 2021 is to hopefully secure a new location for a larger fleet facility. I believe that we are definitely providing a tremendous service for all our customer departments, but unfortunately, we're just outgrowing our location considerably. A larger, better laid out location will not only allow us to become more efficient and save money, but will also allow us to grow and continue providing top-notch service to our current and future customers. That was all I had. Any questions?
Any thoughts or questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff and team.
You guys do a great job. You do a lot with a little. All I can say, I applaud.
Okay, is that it? Anything else? Eddie?
This is Dulce. Just 2 executive session items. One for collective bargaining agreement and another one is a personnel matter.
Okay, do I have a motion to go?
So moved.
Second.
Woman, was James, I believe.
James, yeah.
Okay, second by? Who
By
was the second?
Councilwoman Karuba.
Ruba.
Ruba, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In fact, there's no action to be taken?
Correct. There'll be no action to be taken. And if I could please have Ryan and Elliot stay on. The rest are free to go.
Okay, I'll give you a minute. We're in executive session to turn off the recording.
Tony, you keep freezing on some pretty awesome